Gulf remained silent, lowering his head to focus on listening to Mew's explanation. He continued to try to hold back from interrupting Mew's words. "Gulf," Mew called out, stroking Gulf's ear. Gulf turned towards him. "If I tell you the truth, will you be angry with me?" Gulf remained silent. He didn't know how to answer Mew's question. "I'm scared. I'm really scared that if you know all my secrets, you'll hate me. You know how hard it was for me to make you fall in love with me, and because of my lies, you're back to hating me. I don't want that. I'm really not ready if you have to hate me again." MEWGULF called out, making Mew instantly focus on him. "I don't feel sad if someone lies to me. It's just that I feel sad because from then on I can't trust them anymore. So can you be honest with me from now on, this moment or today? I'm not ready. I'm scared if you reject me." "I'm not rejecting you. It's just that I'm trying to convince myself of everything you say." Gulf said, "You said you were serious about wanting to build a relationship with me, but when you wanted to try to trust me, you said I wasn't ready. Then when will you be ready to try to be open with me? If you keep doing this, believe me, your plan to marry me is just a scenario that you made to play with me." "Scenario?" Mew said, now holding both of Gulf's palms. "Gulf, I'm just scared if you know everything and then you leave me." "Didn't you leave me yourself?" Gulf said after letting go of Mew's hand. "So all this time you've thought that you were a victim? The one who was disadvantaged here is me. You chose to marry that woman instead of visiting me when I was pregnant with your child. Gulf, please give me a chance to speak." Gulf yelled, making Mew silent. Mew still tried to reach for Gulf's hand, but Gulf kept avoiding his touch. "I know you don't want to bring up this issue again, but all the events I've experienced, they all started with your problem all this time. I thought you always used my body for your lust. You just want me to be around you like a companion of your friend, not a life partner, until suddenly you said, 'Gulf, marry me.' At that time, my heart was pounding. I tried to throw away that dirty thought, because at that time I was sure that the words you said were just a comfort for me." Mew was silent. He didn't want to interrupt Gulf's words. Gulf exhaled softly. "Then where's your seriousness towards me? I've never seen any seriousness in you. When you said marry me, is it true? Your words were just a comforting scenario for me." Mew quickly shook his head while stroking Gulf's hair. "I can never say how much I love you, how serious I am about you, and how special you are to me, but I can say that my world smiles when I see you, and I hope you remember what I say. You're not a companion of my friend, and when I said I wanted to marry you, it wasn't a scenario or a comfort for you. If I ever say, 'Gulf, marry me again,' will you accept me and be the wife of my children later? I'll answer after you're willing to be honest with me, and promise there will be no more secrets between us." Mew remained silent. He was too afraid to lose Gulf. "Loving you or hating you, both are equally advantageous," Gulf said, now returning Mew's hand hold. "If I love you, you'll always be in my heart, and if I hate you, you'll always be in my mind. Didn't you ever say that to me? You still remember that?" Mew said. He didn't expect that Gulf always remembered what he said before. Gulf nodded slowly while smiling slightly. "So, are you willing to be honest with me? Tell me everything. Tell me what you're hiding from me. Then I'll try to forgive you and accept you if you no longer have any secrets from me. Because the fact that you're willing to be open with me, that's all I need to see your seriousness in marrying me." Mew remained silent with a dejected face, as if He really wasn't brave enough to say what really happened. Golf exhaled softly. You don't want to? Alright, if you don't want it, it's okay. I want to rest. Can you get out of my room? Golf said, while trying to move Mew's body away from him, but he was blocked again by Mew. Mew held Golf's waist. Are you angry? Angry? He said softly, as if Golf was truly tired. Why should I be angry? There's no point, he said coldly, but still trying to show a smile. I'm sorry. Yeah, I understand. I want to rest. Please get out, Golf said, while releasing Mew's grip on his waist. I want to stay with you. No, Golf said. I'm not sure if you just want to keep me company, he said cautiously. Mew smiled thinly, took off the clothes he was wearing. Then Mew gently pushed Golf's waist until Golf fell onto the bed and Mew immediately followed by lying down beside him. Without paying attention to Golf's refusal, Mew even hugged Golf tightly in his embrace. Golf remained silent and resigned. He exhaled softly and rolled his eyes in annoyance several times. Try premium. You don't want to listen to me? Golf said coldly, while trying to release Mew's grip slowly but still failing. With a forced smile, Mew ignored Golf's words. Now he closed his eyes, trying to avoid Golf's rejection again. Golf raised his head, staring gloomily at Mew's face, which was clearly pretending to be asleep. A few minutes later, silence reigned, and Golf was still gazing up at the ceiling, thinking about Kevin, who seemed not easy to win over. When will you explain all this misunderstanding to Kevin? Golf said, making Mew open his eyes immediately. Misunderstanding? He replied coldly. It's true that I'm his deity, so in my opinion there's nothing wrong with Kevin knowing this. Golf exhaled softly. Let me go. I want to see Kevin now. I'm coming. No. Golf immediately objected. He'll be even more upset when he sees you with me. Then, I won't let you go either, he replied, hugging Golf even tighter. Mew, come on. I don't want to argue with you. So, let go. I just want to see how he is. Hearing Golf's complaints, Mew got up from his bed. Then Mew carried Golf on his shoulders and walked out of the room. Golf immediately protested, hitting Mew's back repeatedly. What are you doing? Put me down. Please don't do this. I don't want Kevin to get angrier at me. Mew, I said put me down. Mew was indifferent. Even Golf was starting to get tired. His punches weakened. Until they reached the door of Kevin's room, Mew slowly lowered Golf. Golf immediately fell, needing Mew's help. His breath was quick and irregular. A few minutes after his breath returned to normal, Golf immediately hit Mew's chest hard until Mew stepped back a few steps from him. Are you trying to die? Don't do whatever you want, Golf protested. Mew chuckled. As long as you're mine, I have the right to do whatever I want. Golf rolled his eyes lazily. Bullshit, he said. After that, Golf turned his body, ready to knock on the door of Kevin's room. Golf remained silent, not daring to knock on the door of Kevin's room. Let me. Don't. Golf stopped Mew when he was about to open the door of Kevin's room. Then, are you going to stand here like this forever? Let's go back, he said, about to walk back to his room, but Mew prevented Golf's steps by holding his wrist. How long will you keep avoiding this problem? Don't be afraid. As long as I'm here, I'll make sure that Kevin won't hate you. Golf bit his own lip, furrowed his brow. He was too tense when Mew slowly opened the door of Kevin's room. While holding his wrist to enter there, it was clearly visible There you could see Kevin sitting in a daze on the bed while putting both his hands on his knees. Kevin's eyes instantly went to Gulf, an angry, annoyed, and hateful look when he saw Gulf holding hands with Mew. A few minutes later, Kevin turned his gaze towards Mew, who tried to smile at him, but Kevin ignored him. Not getting a warm greeting from Kevin, Mew walked towards him while holding Gulf's hand. Kevin still glared at Mew, as if he was being showered with hatred for Mew. The desire to take Gulf from Mew's grip was in Kevin. Mew took a chair for Gulf and himself. He put the chairs next to Kevin's bed. Gulf tried to reach for Kevin's hand, but he quickly pushed it away roughly. "I told you I don't like you being close to him," Kevin said softly, which could still be heard by Mew and Gulf. Hearing Kevin's way of talking that was starting to rebel, Gulf shook his head slowly, as if he was signaling to Kevin that it wasn't his fault. "Kevin!" Mew called out in his deep voice. Kevin turned back towards Mew sharply. "What?" he retorted, glaring at Mew. "Are you going to ask me for permission to take my father away from me?" he said coldly. Kevin Gulf reprimanded. "Tisk!" Kevin snorted, hearing Gulf's defense. "If Dad marries this man, believe me, the end of Dad's life will not be happiness but death. He'll kill you." "Dad!" he shouted. Kevin's eyes were welling up. He tried not to cry in front of his father. "Kevin, listen to Dad first. Give Dad 5 minutes to talk." Kevin was silent. Maybe this time Kevin was giving Gulf a chance to talk to him. Mew interrupted Gulf. Gulf, who understood what Mew meant, was silent. He let Mew explain all this to Kevin. "Kevin, can Uncle call Uncle by the name Daddy?" he said softly. "Who are you?" Kevin replied sarcastically. "My dad is only Dadwin. Medawin. Not a bad guy like you." Mew, who actually couldn't stand Kevin's rude behavior towards him, but when Mew saw Gulf, who seemed to be saying, in his lip movements, "Don't hurt my child," making Mew able to withstand all of Kevin's rude behavior towards him, Mew exhaled softly. "Kevin hungry?" Kevin was silent. "Kevin wanted to eat outside with Dad?" Mew coaxed. Kevin turned to Gulf. Honestly, Kevin really wanted to eat with Gulf, especially since his stomach was also very hungry. "You allow me to get out of this stinky house of yours and eat outside?" Kevin replied afterwards. Mew nodded slowly. "Just me and Dad." "No, there'll be me, your dad, Mom Violet, and my friends." Kevin rolled his eyes in annoyance. "Why should I and Dad go eat with your family? I'm not interested." "Kevin!" Gulf shouted immediately. "Dad is yelling at me?" "No, whatever. If Dad wants to eat with his family, whatever. I won't care about you anymore." No, that's not what Dad meant." Mew again interrupted Gulf's words. Seeing Gulf, who seemed about to cry, made Mew feel sorry. He patted Gulf's shoulder very softly and shook his head. Then Mew turned back to Kevin, who was still staring at him sharply. "What's your reason for not wanting to eat with me? You think I'm stupid. I know you're taking me out to eat just to talk about your marriage to my dad, right? Seeing your face for a second is enough to increase my hatred for you, let alone I have to keep seeing your face every day." Mew still held back Gulf. He didn't want Gulf to be rude to Kevin just because of him. "Why do you hate me so much?" A stupid question, okay? You don't realize what you've done to my dad? He replied sarcastically. "You married another woman while my dad was pregnant with me. You abandoned us. Then suddenly you reappear and start acting like you own the place. Who do you think you are? Gulf was startled. How did Kevin know about what had happened all this time? Who told Kevin? Mew fell silent for a moment, taking a deep breath again. Kevin, may I know who told you? No. Why you say? If you knew who told me, you'd probably kill that person. Alright, now Uncle wants to ask you, do you want to say something to me? Like, what do you want? What I want to go to school. I want to have friends. I want to live my life like any kid my age. And I want to take Dad away from you. Why does Kevin want to take Dad away, Kevin? Because you don't really love him, Kevin retorted sarcastically. You're just taking advantage of him, and the person you love isn't Dad. But Kevin cut off his own words, turning to look intensely at Gulf. He didn't want to make Gulf worried and anxious. Kevin preferred to keep his mouth shut. Seeing Gulf's face as if he didn't understand what was happening made Kevin not want to hurt his heart when Gulf knew what was really going on. Mew remained silent and showed a flat face. Kevin turned back to Mew. Please, don't hurt my dad anymore. You won't understand how it feels when you miss someone, but that person already has a partner. So please let my dad go. Don't kill him. You can take advantage of me and then kill me, but not my dad. He sacrificed for me for 7 years. I'm a disgrace to him. No, enough. Please stop. Gulf shouted hysterically. He couldn't hold back his tears and ended up hugging Kevin and crying in his arms. Hick. Forgive Dad, Kevin. Dad apologizes. Dad begs. Kevin, please don't say that anymore, okay? It's not true. Kevin is not a disgrace to Dad. Kevin is the most precious person to Dad. Kevin wants to forgive Dad, right? Kevin released his hug for a moment. He wiped Gulf's tears that kept falling on his smooth cheeks. Even Kevin tried to stay cool. He didn't want to cry in front of his dad. Somehow seeing a father and son like this made Mew feel uneasy. The urge to hug the two people he loved, but that was highly unlikely. Mew could only stand silently and stare at the two people he loved so much, even though deep down there was a hint of jealousy when Kevin wiped Gulf's tears. A few minutes after Kevin wiped Gulf's tears, Kevin turned back to Mew, staring sharply at Mew, as if Kevin was saying, because of you, my dad is crying like this. It was very clear when Mew looked into Kevin's eyes. Kevin clenched his fists. Kevin got up from his bed and stood in front of Mew, who was still sitting in the chair. Kevin glared at Mew, then brought his lips close to Mew's ear. Then he whispered, aren't you tired of always acting like this? Don't look pathetic, sir. Your face doesn't suit that expression. Remember what I say. I will be the one to take my dad away from you, and I won't let you hurt him again. You bastard. After finishing whispering to Mew, Kevin walked out of the room, leaving his dad with the man he hated in the room. Kevin, where are you going? Kevin. Mew immediately got up from his seat, restraining Gulf, who was trying to chase after Kevin. Damn it. Let me go. Get out of the way. You bastard. Why did you let him go? Hearing the riot and harsh words made Mew furious. Mew grabbed Gulf's arm tightly, not caring about the sound of Gulf's sobs getting clear. Don't chase him. If you try to leave me and choose to chase your child, you'll regret it. Gulf, who couldn't accept Mew's threat, with all the strength he had, he pushed Mew's body roughly and finally broke free from his grip. I told you he's my child. He's the most precious person to me, and you're nothing compared to Kevin. I can leave you whenever I want, but I won't be able to leave my child alone, because he only needs me, unlike you. So, don't threaten me with that stupid threat." After saying those words, Gulf left Mew in the room. Not caring about the threat that Mew said earlier, Gulf immediately ran to catch up to Kevin. Mew smiled wryly, staring sharply at the door that was still swaying. "TSK, you little bastard," he hissed. Then Mew walked out of Kevin's room. In every hallway with very little light, Gulf ran. He kept shouting his son's name, but he still didn't get an answer. "Kevin, son, where are you?" "It's Dad. Honey, Kevin." His shouts echoed through the hallways, but he still couldn't find the person he was looking for, until Gulf stopped in front of the back door of the house. Then he looked out the window. It was raining heavily outside. The wind was blowing strongly to and fro. There were even several sounds of thunder. This house was soundproof. Gulf didn't realize it was a storm outside. "Kevin," he said softly as he saw a little child who was outside the house, sitting in the garden alone, not caring about the heavy rain that was hitting his body. "Kevin!" Gulf shouted hysterically. Gulf opened the back door of the house very roughly. Gulf ran towards Kevin. Even Gulf didn't care about the thin clothes he was wearing. "Son, why are you here? Come inside. You'll get sick." "Why did Dad lie to me?" Kevin retorted. "Believe me," behind the raindrops that kept raining on his face, Kevin was crying. "What lie?" "Kevin, let's go inside. We'll talk about it properly inside. Not here. You said you only needed me," Kevin shouted. The sound of Kevin's sobs began to be heard. "Kevin, you're crying." "Yes, honey. Dad only needs Kevin," he said. He crouched in front of Kevin to wipe away Kevin's tears that were covered by the rain. "Then why does Dad want to get married again?" Gulf was silent. He stared intensely at Kevin until he didn't realize that he was also shedding tears. Kevin wiped his own tears with his arm. "There are no other children who want their father to get married again. Do you know how it feels to see your own dad get married again?" he shouted, sounding very loud. Gulf's words reminded him of his father and also Gulf's mother. Gulf covered his own mouth, shook his head slowly, trying to make Kevin stop talking. "Of course you can get married because you're an adult, while I'm just a little kid who can't get married or go to school. I have no escape. I'm so upset. Life is so annoying." Gulf bit his own lip. Then he pushed Kevin's back until Kevin fell into his arms. Gulf stroked Kevin's hair, which was wet from the raindrops. Thunder, boom. Even the father and son pair didn't care about the loud thunder. Kevin's body seemed to freeze. Kevin deliberately ran out of the house to cry in the middle of the rain, so that Kevin could hide his tears behind the raindrops. "I told you he's not a good guy. Why don't you believe me? I don't want to lose you, Dad. Please, leave this place. Let's find a way to get out of this house." Kevin's scared. "Dad," Kevin is so scared. Kevin only has Dad. Only Dad who's willing to accept Kevin since he was little. Kevin's scared. Kevin's scared that Kevin won't have a place to escape when Kevin is broken. 10 years later, do you know what happened between Mew's little family over the past 10 years? Let's listen together. June 27, 1974. Moscow, Russia. Mew's current home, with Gulf and Kevin. The very luxurious and magnificent house was only inhabited by the three of them. Other than that, there were only 900 guards living at Mew's residence. Since his move from Bangkok, Thailand, Mew tightened security for Gulf and Kevin to avoid the night of disaster a few years ago. "Babe," Mew called out while wrapping his arm around Gulf's waist. Gulf turned. "What's for breakfast, babe?" "Fish soup again," he complained when he saw the food on the kitchen table. "Sorry, I'll cook your favorite food later. If I don't cook fish soup, Kevin won't want to eat breakfast with us." Sure enough, Kevin rarely ate breakfast with Bright and Gulf. If there wasn't his favorite, Buddha jump over the wall fish soup. Buddha jump over the wall fish soup. The first food that Kevin ate when he arrived in Moscow with Gulf, only with Gulf. Since then, Gulf tried to learn how to cook. Until now he has become proficient in cooking fish soup or other dishes. What's more, Gulf never went out of the house, so cooking is now his hobby. Mew smiled thinly. Then he turned Gulf around to face him. He removed the bib apron that Gulf was still wearing. "Alright, I want to eat beef tonight. I'll buy you some beef when I get off work later." Gulf smiled thinly. Gulf was about to put his arm around Mew's neck, but when Gulf turned, he saw Kevin staring at him angrily. Instantly, Gulf stopped the movement of his hand, then pushed Mew's body that was blocking him. Then, Gulf walked towards Kevin. "Honey, are you ready?" he asked when he arrived in front of Kevin. Kevin was silent, still glaring at Mew. Gulf reached for Kevin's wrist. "You eat first, okay? Before going to school." Kevin turned to Gulf. "No, I'm not hungry." He roughly pushed Gulf's hand away, then walked towards the front door of the house. Ding! Kevin cursed when he heard the sound of the door locking with the remote that Mew was holding. "Eat first. Your dad has taken the trouble to cook food for you," Mew said after sitting in the dining chair. Kevin rolled his eyes lazily, turned to Mew who seemed indifferent to him. "I didn't tell him to cook for me, so it's not my fault if I don't want to eat." "Open the door quickly," Kevin protested. Mew glanced at Kevin, staring at him with a flat face. "It's still too early. Eat first. Leave with me later." "With you? I'd rather not go to school if I have to be in the same car with you," Kevin retorted. Kevin, okay. Dad will bring you a lunchbox." Gulf, who began to hear Kevin's rebellion, tried to prevent a fight between Mew and Kevin. "I told you I'm not hungry," Kevin shouted. When he saw Gulf being shouted at by Kevin, it made Mew furious. Kevin slammed the table until it cracked. "How long are you going to be rude like this? You're an adult. You shouldn't be acting like a little kid. Do you think your attitude like this looks cool?" Gulf walked towards Mew, trying to calm him down. He whispered, "Please, don't get carried away by your emotions." "You're still defending him?" Mew argued, now staring sharply at Gulf. Gulf fell silent. If Mew stared at him like this, Gulf didn't dare to speak or contradict Mew's words. "Don't look at my dad like that," Kevin shouted hysterically. Kevin really didn't like it when Mew dared to stare at Gulf sharply, because behind that sharp look, Kevin could see the killer's aura in Mew. Kevin was very afraid of that. It's better that he be the one who stared at sharply by Mew than his dad. "Kevin, if you dare to take one step, I won't hesitate to be rough with your child," Mew threatened. When Gulf was about to walk towards Kevin, Gulf turned back to Mew. "Are you threatening me? Stay there. If you keep spoiling him, even when he's 20, his attitude won't change," he said. Then Mew walked towards Kevin. "Please," he said softly. Only Mew could hear it. "Please, don't be rough with him." Hearing Gulf's plea which seemed so worried, made Mew relent. Mew turned back to Gulf. "I won't be rough if you'll follow my words. Stay there. Let me handle Kevin this time." The feeling of worry in Gulf's heart grew stronger. He wasn't sure if Mew could control his emotions when he was with Kevin. Unfortunately, there was no other choice but to obey Mew's command. Gulf could only stay silent and let Mew forcibly pull Kevin out of the house. Over the past 10 years, the situation has remained the same. Kevin still couldn't accept Mew's presence. Even Gulf refused Mew's proposal just because he didn't want to make Kevin anxious. Want to know what happened over the past 10 years? Let's flash back to their past. Flashback 10 years ago, July 1964. Bangkok, Thailand, were the day when Kevin said he didn't want to go to Mew's family dinner. Then he ran out of Mew's house and let himself get rained on. Do you still remember that? Even when Kevin said that Mew wasn't a good person. Do you still remember that? Since that day, Gulf managed to calm Kevin down. For more than a week, Kevin had a fever. Gulf himself took care of Kevin because Kevin didn't want to be touched by anyone other than Gulf. Then after Kevin recovered, Gulf discussed Kevin's future. Gulf begged Mew to let Kevin go to school, because at his age now, Kevin should be in school. Until a few weeks later, Mew allowed Kevin to go to school. But there were many conditions that Mew asked of Gulf. Do you still remember? That Boren and Mean were on their way to Mew's residence at that time, when Kevin was caught in the rain in the backyard with Gulf. At that time, Mew was watching Gulf on the balcony of his room, seeing directly what was happening. And when Mew shifted his gaze to another direction, he accidentally saw two men climbing a tree to see what was behind the high wall inside Mew's house. The two men, who were none other than Boren and Mean, they vaguely heard what Kevin said. Even they were willing to get rained on until they fell several times when they wanted to climb a tree just to see what was behind the big wall. Mew also knew that Kevin saw the two. Mew kept watching the two until one of them, whom Mew knew, tried to signal to Kevin. Boren, he tried to wave his hand towards Kevin until Kevin noticed. Boren brought a white cloth that read, "Raise your hand if you need my help." And Kevin immediately raised both his hands, jumping up and down to make it clear that he desperately needed help. Until suddenly Kevin heard Gulf's voice. He immediately acted. Kevin pretended to cry so that Gulf wouldn't notice, because at that time, Kevin didn't want to involve Gulf when he planned to run away. Kevin didn't want his dad to get in trouble because of his actions. Let him handle this problem himself. Mew wasn't stupid. He smirked at Kevin's actions. He didn't expect that Kevin's mind was as petty as his. It wasn't just once or twice. Mew had often seen Kevin's actions trying to find a way to escape from his house. Even Kevin secretly went into the basement. Kevin knew everything in the room, which was none other than the most important people that Mew was hiding in the room. Kevin saw a little boy who seemed to be a few months older than him. Kevin also saw the girl that Mew meant, because Kevin had accidentally overheard Mew's conversation with his friends when they were discussing Prim's death, where Prim's photo was also displayed on a large screen. Not only the girl who looked like Prim, but Kevin also saw the woman locked up in the basement. Kevin knew who that woman was. He would definitely clearly remember the person who took Mew away from his dad. Sure enough, the woman was Alicia. You're confused. How could Kevin know about Alicia, right? There was a traitor who tried to ruin Mew's family. That person told Kevin everything that happened in detail and clearly. Even that person gave photos of the people involved in Mew's problems. There were many other people that Kevin saw, but none of them were conscious. The hands and feet of the people who were locked up were chained with iron chains. But strangely, when Kevin was about to leave the basement, the little boy called his name. Kevin. Kevin turned. How come only he was conscious? And why does he know my name? That's what Kevin thought. Not caring about that thought, Kevin walked slowly towards the child locked in the cell. I know you're Kevin, right? I also know you're trying to escape from here, right? The little boy said when Kevin was very close to him. Kevin nodded slowly, still confused. Look, the key up there. Can you get the key for me? The child said, pointing to the top of the wall where a small key was seen tucked into a wooden cover. Kevin remained silent, seeing the key up there. Please help me. Get that key, please. The child pleaded again. A few minutes after Kevin was lost in thought, he finally followed the little child's command. Because Kevin felt very sorry for the child, who had many bruises and cuts all over his body. The child was only wearing thin white clothes. Even his chest was clearly visible behind the white cloth. After Kevin successfully retrieved the key from the roof, even though his effort almost made him give up because Kevin kept falling when he wanted to climb several piles of wood and large stones, Kevin handed the key to the little child. The door opened. Kevin widened his eyes. How could he know that there was a key behind the roof that wasn't very clearly visible because the room was very minimal confidence? The little child successfully got out of the cell. He limped towards Kevin. Kevin walked backwards. The child's face was very frightening. His body was very tall and his face was full of knife cuts. Don't be afraid. I won't do anything to you. I just want to know you're really Kevin, right? He said when Kevin was already cornered against the wall of the basement. Kevin nodded slowly. Who are you? Why do you know my name? And why are you here? Why are you hurt? Aliovic. Silence. After Kevin knew the little boy's name, he was silent. Kevin wanted to leave the basement. The child named Aliovic grabbed his wrist, stopping Kevin from leaving. Kevin turned back to him. Your dad's name is Gulf Kanawut. Does he know who killed his mother? How is he? He's okay, right? Aliovic said. Mother. What do you mean? It turns out you don't know. Where did you know? And who are you really? Kevin pushed away Aliovic's grip. Help me get out of here, Aliovic said. Why should I help you? After I successfully escape from here, I'll come back to you to take you away from this dirty house with your dad. That's what you want, right? Then I'll also tell you what happened in the past. Mew Suppasit, he's not a good person, trust me. You see the woman who fainted there, Aliovic said, pointing towards Alacia. Kevin looked at the woman. You must know who that woman is. 9 p.m. There will be a guard checking this room. So can you direct me to get out of this house? You won't be able to get out. There's a big wall outside the house. There's a basement behind the garden of this house. You just need to tell me where the exit to this room is, Aliovic said. Kevin pointed towards the wall of the stairs, which was the exit to this room. Thank you, I swear. I'll see you again. Take this. Aliovic handed a paper with someone's phone number on it. After that, Aliovic wanted to walk to the exit. Wait, Kevin stopped him, making Aliovic turn around and immediately walk quickly to silence Kevin's mouth with his hand. SSD, don't wake the woman, or we'll both die here. Sorry, it's okay. Is there anything else you want to say? Where this Kevin handed the sandals he was wearing to Aliyovek's feet. Your foot is injured. You're not wearing shoes. So, wear mine, and I'll let you go to keep your promise. Aliyovek smiled. Then he put on golf shoes and then walked out of the basement, leaving Kevin alone in the room. For some reason, Kevin trusted Aliyovek's words more than Mew's. A few minutes after Aliyovek left, Kevin left the room. He walked stealthily until he arrived safely in his room. After a day of Kevin helping Aliyovek escape, Mew knew all about it. He was furious with Kevin's actions that were way out of line. There were 5 CCTVs in the basement. Unfortunately, Mew only knew after getting news from his men that Aliyovek wasn't in the room. Mew intended to reprimand Kevin, but Mew also wanted to know how clever Kevin was with the plan he had made. Mew let Kevin do whatever he wanted and he only watched Kevin's every move. Until the right time, Mew would only punish Kevin for this. The conditions that Mew made, so that Kevin could go to school outside the house. After the incident where Mew saw the policeman, he knew wandering around his territory. Mew planned to send Kevin to school in Russia, where no one would dare to bother his family. Even after Kevin was officially enrolled in school in Russia, Mew secretly threatened Kevin, "If you intend to run away from me, I won't hesitate to kill your dad and then you." Because of that, Kevin wouldn't dare to run away alone, leaving his dad with that jerk. He kept waiting for Aliyovek's promise to meet him again and help him escape from Mew's clutches. But until Kevin was almost 18 years old, Aliyovek never found him. During Mew's move, he didn't allow Golf to leave the house without his permission. At first, Golf was very angry with this unfair attitude, but as time went on, Golf again easily melted by Mew's words and behavior towards him. Golf is stupid, that's all. While living in Russia, Mew realized his dream, where he really wanted to live like an ordinary human being. Mew has more than 100 companies, collaborating with people from America, Korea, and China, which generate more than $99,000 trillion. There's a company he often visits. The company is called VR, located in Moscow, not far from his house. Now about where Kevin goes to school. At the age of almost 18, the General VF Marjalov, Ryazan Guards Higher Airborne, twice Red Banner Order of Suvorov Command School, is a military educational institution of the Russian Ministry of Defense. It was first formed as the Ryazan Infantry Courses on the 13th of November 1918, making it one of the oldest active military academies in modern Russia. Golf asked Kevin to attend a military institution so that he would be like his older brother. What Kevin hated most when he was about to go to school, Kevin would leave with Mew and his driver. Even when Kevin was at school, there were 10 to 20 guards guarding the front of his school to make sure that Kevin didn't intend to escape. Kevin would also be picked up by Mew's driver after school, or if Mew had time, Mew himself would pick him up. Kevin didn't have any friends at school. No one dared to get close to Kevin when they knew his family background. About what happened to Boren and Min. After returning from Mew's residence, Boren and Min successfully returned home safely until they arrived at their home. Boren immediately made a plan to take Kevin away from Mew's house. At that time, Min was very incredulous. It turned out that Boren's suspicions all this time were true. Even Boren also believed that it wasn't just Kevin who was locked up in that house. Boren was sure that Golf and Aliyovek were also there. Until a few weeks later, Boren and Min went back to their respective jobs. But during off hours, Boren and Mew continued to investigate this Mew case. Boren and Mew came back to Mew's residence, and do you know what Boren saw there? Where there were many wolf corpses behind the big wall. The house that had stood strong now collapsed and became debris and rocks. The stench of wolf blood made Mew unable to withstand, and he ended up vomiting. Seeing how the heads, bones, flesh and other wolf bodies were scattered everywhere, it was clearly disgusting. There were about 500 or more wolves that died behind the big wall. That day, Boren immediately called Com Anton to go to the location where he was. Hundreds of police came to the vampire's house to clean up the wolf corpses. Until a few days later, the area was successfully evacuated. Boren and Mew were interrogated about how they knew the place. Then Boren told everything that happened, but not a single police officer believed his words. Boren and Mew were almost fired for daring to work outside their duties. But luckily Com Anton continued to investigate the serial murder of the wolves. A week later, Boren managed to find Aliovak's whereabouts and even get his photo. Where at that time Boren knew that Aliovak was now at Alexandra's house. But strangely, when Boren arrived at Alexandra's house, the house was boarded up and it said this house is for sale. Just a few hours before Aliovak left Alexandra's residence. How could they disappear without a trace in just a matter of hours? From that day on, Boren completely lost track. He couldn't find any information about MEWGULF, Kevin, or Aliovak. It was as if they disappeared into thin air. August 25th, 1964. Exactly on the night of Kevin's birthday, Boren was almost killed. Around 11:55 p.m., and Baron was just coming home from his office. Suddenly, on his way home, Boren almost hit a little child if he hadn't stopped his car. Boren got out of the car to move the kitten to the side of the road. After that, Boren got back into the car, continued the trip. A few minutes after Boren started driving, he didn't realize there was a man in the back seat, who was none other than Mew Rawid, wearing a black robe and gloves. Mew brought out his long nails, then quickly Mew stabbed Boren's right arm. Boren was surprised. He almost hit a tree, but luckily he managed to step on the brake. The road was very quiet, and when Boren turned, how shocked he was when he saw Mew in his car. Boren was a little scared. Mew smirked with satisfaction. Without counting the seconds, Mew again broke through and stabbed Boren's stomach. He bit Boren's wrist until he almost touched Boren's pulse. Boren screamed. He tried to reach for his phone, but Mew got to it first. He crushed the phone until it was shattered into pieces. Boren almost lost consciousness. Blood continued to pour all over his body that was stabbed by Mew. Boren, then he whispered, "I'll give you a third chance. If you still interfere in my affairs, I won't hesitate to tear your body apart like the wolves I killed." After that, Mew disappeared, leaving Boren dying inside and bringing his face close to the side of the car. Faintly, Mew's body suddenly disappeared in his car. Luckily, there was a resident not far away who knew that there was a sound of the steering wheel slamming. It was the resident who helped Boren until he arrived at the hospital. For 8 months, Boren was in a coma. His life was almost lost. Boren lost a lot of blood at that time. April 1965. Boren woke up from his coma. It took a few weeks until Boren could speak fluently. At that time, Com Anton interrogated him. Then Boren told everything that happened, but still no one believed his words. Luckily, Bourne had a recording in his car. Even more unfortunately, the video recording didn't show Mew in his car. Do you know what's in the recording? There was no one in his car except Bourne and the injuries that Bourne got because of his own actions, where the recording shows that Bourne was the one who stabbed himself using a 30 cm knife. Sure enough, there was evidence of a knife in his car. Bourne kept saying, "I couldn't have done that." Who would believe his words? When they saw the video recording, even Bourne was also told that the case of who killed the wolves was closed. 2 months ago, Bourne became more furious. How could this happen? Even the eyewitness, the resident who helped Bourne, also said that Bourne himself stabbed his body, until finally, Bourne was fired from his job after Bourne recovered completely. Only his 3 friends still visited him often, Mean, Hessel, and Lionel. Bourne repeatedly kept telling his 3 friends about the real incident, but none of them believed him, until his 3 friends thought Bourne was truly crazy. Bourne had no choice but to return to his normal life. He didn't interfere with Mew's affairs anymore and tried to forget what happened to him in the last few months. 7 years later, September 1972, until suddenly Bourne received information signals through the newspaper, where the letter was written, "You're looking for me, aren't you? I'm Aliovic. I'm in Russia. I know you're still trying to find out where Mew Suppasit is, right? I know where he is. He's in Russia. I'm following him. Call my number if you still want to catch that jerk." Flashback end.